This is really important news. NCAA President Mark Emmert said yesterday that they will not mandate a uniform return to college sports. So the decisions on when everyone can start playing are up to state officials and university presidents. The commissioner of the SEC, Greg Sankey, was on with Paul Feinbaum yesterday, and he seemed to walk back prior comments he had made, suggesting the SEC will play football this fall, regardless of whether or not anyone else can do the same.
I was asked a question, and I think if the entirety is played, I spoke when this flared up, of the connection between the Autonomy 5 conferences being likely stronger than I've ever experienced. We're speaking every day. But even more importantly, our schedules are connected. So the notion that one lightly thinks about going off and doing something in an independent way is actually not attached to reality.
So this is really interesting and important stuff. Laura's back with us here in RC, and Jay Will back as well, because you guys both played big-time college athletics at the highest possible level. I want to get your perspective on this. But, Laura, I'll start with you, because you know Sankey well and you know the inner workings of the SEC well. When push comes to shove, what can we expect to happen at the SEC?
Look, I think the SEC is going to find a way to play football in the fall, and it may not be an on-time start because we are kind of entering that zone where in order to get players on campus, in order to get things going in a reasonable amount of time to get them ready to play an on-time season in September, we might run out of some of that time. That might not be able to be at least uniform across the board. We talked to Dan Mullen, the Florida head coach, a couple days ago. He said in a couple of weeks they may be able to get some players back on campus dependent upon some of their state restrictions that could be lifted. So it just depends on how all that goes. But I think the SEC is making all of these moves to make sure they can play in the fall. And there are other conferences doing that as well. The ACC potentially, the Big Ten, the Big 12, the Pac-12 is a little bit of a different story, and we can get into that a little bit more. But I think what you're seeing is these Power 5 conferences coming together and deciding that with each other, they'll do whatever they want. And Mark Emmert at the NCAA level has said a few things about what he would like this to look like. I think either way, these conference commissioners are going to be the major power players in how this all plays out.
So Jay Williams, I'm just always interested to hear your perspective on stuff like this. You're a loud voice when it comes to collegiate athletics and the model and the way that it is run. What do you take from all the discussion that you're hearing here and other places about this return?
You're starting to see all the smaller ships that are still really big ships start to disperse away from the Titanic, Greeny. You're starting to see the individual conferences that are going to start to take the power into their own hands, abide by the rules and regulations of the NCAA to a degree in order to keep their stuff going. I mean, this opens up Pandora's box to a degree, not only for the conferences and for the NCAA, but also for a lot of the players. If there isn't class in session, then, I mean, I know that we're working on name, image, and likeness, and that's projected to come into the equation pretty soon here. But then all of a sudden, now you're going to have students, well, I mean, players that are on campus when there are no academics, which kind of changes the dynamic of the relationship. So insurance policies are going to have to be differently mandated. There's so many things that are going to have to change very quickly, but these are individual conferences taking control. And LR, you got to exactly hit the nail right on the head. They are going to have autonomy in which ways they go back to market with the product.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.